So, factoring equations of the form x squared plus bx plus c. Okay. First comes to first, let's just factor a simple one. Okay, let's use the book's example here. X squared plus 9x plus 18. So we have x squared plus 9x plus 18. I'm going to show you the way that I do it. I suggest you do it the way that I do it because I think it's good. Obviously, other people have different ways that they think are better. If you have a way that you feel comfortable with, don't feel like you have to change. But I think it's a good suggestion to do it this way. First, I have to start by factoring this number. Now, first, I have to understand that I have to multiply to get this number. Whatever my factors are, they have to multiply to get that and add to get that. So how do I do it? X squared plus 9x plus 18. What's the technique I use? I do this. I draw this little upside down looking V thing. And then I always start with 1. So it's 1 and whatever my number is. Then I go up. I don't just go some random guess. I go up to 2. Is 2 a factor of 18? Yeah, 2 and 9. What about 3? 3 and 6. What about 4? What about 5? No. I know I can stop because the next number is 6, but I already have 6 there. That's why I do it this way. I go up gradually. Okay? So they have to add to get 9. So I know my factors are 3 and 6. And so this whole thing becomes x plus 3 times x plus 6. Like, why don't you come sit right here? That's better. I know. I can't see you. I don't know what's going on. I miss you, man. All right. Oh, okay. No, that's fine. You can stay over there then. That's fine. No, sorry, man. You're good. You're all right. All right. That's a good public service. All right. So there you go. That's factoring. Okay. What does your book march you through? Well, your book marches you through a process. It calls it B and C. Well, that's because it's ax squared plus bx plus c. B in this case is 11. C is 30. It has to multiply to get 30. Oh, this is a completely different one. So B is 11. C is 30. X squared plus 11x plus 30. C is positive, so the sign of the factors will be the same. List the factor, we're going to go into that in a second. List the factor pairs of C, which is 30. Well, it's 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. 1 plus 30 equals 31. 2 plus 15 equals 17. 3 and 10 equals 13. 5 and 6 equals 11. Clearly, it's 5 and 6 because they have to add up to make B. So it's 5 and 6. So it's x plus 5 and x plus 6. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. So this is basically
So it's the same way, they're just doing more steps with it.
It's logically it's the exact same thing. It's just I would never create a table or something like that. You know, I would just do it exactly the way that I showed you. Okay. Any questions about this? Okay. Now, the next thing we get into is exactly what it's talking about here. If C is positive or negative, the sign of the factors will be the same or different. Okay. So, let's say I have x squared plus 4x plus 3. X squared plus 4x plus 3. Well, we know that when I factor it, there's going to be a smaller factor and a bigger factor. The factors could be the same, but generally one is smaller and one is bigger. All right? Well, this is positive, so I know that the factors have to be the same sign. Why? Well, if it's positive and a positive times positive is positive. If it's a negative and a negative, still the same sign. Negative times a negative is a positive, right? So there has to be either positive and positive or negative and negative, right? They have to be the same sign because this is positive, right? If one was positive and one was negative, it would be a positive times a negative, and that would end up as negative. So I know it either has to be both positive or both negative because this one's positive, all right? But this is positive, and they have to combine to create this one, so two negatives don't combine to make a positive. So I know that both of the factors have to be positive, okay? So in this case, both the smaller factor and the bigger factor have to be positive. And what are the factors actually? It will be x plus 3 and x plus 1. Right? You see that? Okay. Well, what about if it's x squared minus 4x plus 3? Well, that's positive, so are they the same signs or different signs? Same. They have to be the same sign. But this is negative, so they both are going to be negative. They both have to be negative. Both the smaller and the bigger factor have to be negative. So it's going to be x minus 3 and x minus 1. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so if it's positive, positive, they're both positive. If it's negative, positive, they're both negative. Okay? What about if I have x squared plus 4x minus 5. Well, now that last sign is negative, right? So I know they have to be either same or opposite signs. Which one will they be? Opposite. One has to be positive, one has to be negative. Because they'll multiply to be a negative. A positive and a negative multiply to make a negative. But this sign is positive. So which one is going to be positive? The bigger or the smaller? The bigger. The bigger one will be positive. So the smaller will be negative, and the bigger one will be positive. What will this look like? Five. 1, 5. Negative 1. Positive 5. Is that clear? Yes, sir. Go right ahead. -1, +5. Why? If I FOIL that out, I get x squared minus 1x plus 5x. So I'm subtracting 1x, but I'm adding 5x. So that's why it becomes positive, right? The 4x is positive. And then the last option is if I have x squared minus 4x and minus 5. In this case, this number is negative, so which one will be negative, the smaller or the bigger? The bigger will be negative. Now, let me demystify that because it seems like this uncrackable code. It's really not. Okay? The bigger factor always follows this sign. The bigger factor always follows the first sign. Simple as that. If this sign is positive, then both factors follow this sign, right? If this sign is negative, then they're opposite signs. You see? The biggest factor always follows this sign, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. See, the bigger factor always follows that sign. If this is positive, both sides are the same. If this is negative, both sides are opposite. Does that make sense? You understand? Okay. So if this is negative, if this is positive, and that's positive, that's easy, they're both positive. This is positive, this is negative, oh, that's easy, they're both negative, right? It's when they're negative that I gotta think, wait, okay, this is negative, but that's positive, so the bigger one is positive. That's negative, bigger one is negative. Does that make sense to you guys? You understand? You understand that? Okay. Bigger factor always follows the first sign. If the second sign is positive, they're both the same. Second sign is negative, they're opposite. Good. Now, go ahead, factor this one, x squared plus 13x minus 30. You don't have to do it with the whole table thing, just do it. X squared plus 13x minus 30. Yes?
Oh, found it.
Yeah, top of page 310. No, just factor it. Don't worry about this. Just factor it. Like I said, don't worry about what the book is asking. Just factor it. Okay. Let's do it. You guys understand this? I hope so, because it kind of demystifies things. All right. So, I draw my upside down V, 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4, no, but 5 and 6. Okay. This is minus, so you might, look, here's where it comes into play. Look, you might say, oh, it's 3 and 10, x plus 3 and x plus 10. Got it, that adds to 13. But this is minus, so I'm not looking to what combines or adds to 13. I'm looking for the difference that is 13. And the ones that are different by 13 is 2 and 15. This is positive, so I know the bigger one is positive. X plus 15 times x minus 2. You see how those rules make it fast? You don't have to think too hard. See? That's positive, so the bigger is positive. If that's negative, I'm looking for the difference. This is negative, I'm looking for the difference. If it's positive, I'm looking for the sum. Okay? Any questions about that?
It doesn't matter which one, right? X minus 2.
No. Okay, good. Next. Solving equations of the form x squared plus bx, top of page 11, 311, x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This one right here. Okay. Now this is probably starting to look familiar. Can I factor it when it's like that?
No.
What do I have to do? I've got to add 12 to both sides. I've got to get a 0 on one side, right? Yeah. X squared minus 8. Yeah. X squared minus 8x plus 12 equals 0. X squared minus 8x plus 12 equals 0. Okay. It's all right, man. All right. Cool, I got it. Now what? What do I do? Yeah?
Oh, subtract 12 with 0.
But I just brought that 12 over.
Oh.
So I don't want to do that. I understand where you're going.
You put it in parentheses?
But I factor it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to do, exactly. All right, so I factor. Once I've got it like this, I want to factor, and we'll see why. If I factor it, I get 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Why do I do it this way? Because look, are there any numbers between 3 and 4? No. So that's why I know I'm done, right? If you just randomly guess, then you might never know that you're done. But if you go up in this methodical way, 1, then 2, then 3, you know there are no more left. Do you understand? Do you guys understand why that's good to be methodical about it and systematic? Okay? Because sometimes the numbers are really big, like 156, right? And then if you're just guessing factors, you might be sitting there for like 3 minutes, like, oh, wait, what? Maybe this, maybe I'll try this number. But if you just go up, you find, look, as these numbers go up, what happens to these numbers? They come down, they converge, they get closer and closer together, and eventually you got no numbers left. All right, so 1, 2, 3, which numbers combine to make -8? First off, this is positive, so the signs are the same. So I'm looking for what combines to make 8. Well, it's clearly 2 and 6. 2 and 6, right? And this is negative, so they're both, class, let's focus. This is positive, so we know they're the same sign, right? This is negative, so they're both negative. Yeah?
What about 4 and 3? Would that work with that?
Would that combine? Does that combine to make 8?
I thought we were going into 12.
We're multiplying to 12, but we have to combine to make 8.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So it's x minus 2 times x minus 6 equals 0. Guys, focus. X minus 2 times x minus 6 is equal to 0. Why did I factor? Why did I factor? There is a property that says when I've got these two things multiplied equals 0, I can do something. Set them both to 0. What's the property called? You remember? Zero product property. The zero product property says if I've got a product equal to 0, then either the first or the last is equal to 0. So I set them both equal to 0, and then I solve. So that's why I factored. And I get x equals 2 and x equals 6. Does that make sense? Any questions?
You have to do that for everyone?
What?
Only if it's equal to 0. You have to do that.
The whole idea is that in order to solve this equation, I'm just asking you for the solutions, right? I just give this equation to you, I'm like, hey, find the solutions. And you're like, okay, well, I'm a mathematician, I think I can do this. And this is a technique.
But the first ones we didn't do the equal to 0. That's only
Because
if
they
it's
weren't,
equal.
there was no equal sign.
That's what's
It was just saying find the zeros.
Right.
In that in the case before, I was just factoring. Okay, I wasn't even actually finding the zeros. Here, I'm setting the equation equal to 0, right? So this whole thing is solving quadratic equations, all right? All right, so with that said, we're solving quadratic equations. You get x equals 2 and x equals 6. And then if we graph the function, hey, the function is equal to 0 where the function is equal to 0. Or the zeros of the function are where the function is equal to 0. So there we go. X equals 2 and x equals 6. We see the zeros right there. Does that make sense? You see? Okay, so everybody go ahead and do numbers 4, 5, and 6 on your own, please. You're going to do all of them, so 4, 5, and 6. You're going to do them just like I did it here. And on the next page over, we're not going to use that blank space on the next page. So if you want to do your work on that page, that's a good idea. Another minute. Okie dokie. Let's give me 15 seconds. All right, let's work these out together. First step here for number 4, add 54 to both sides. I end up with x squared plus 15x plus 54 equals 0. I factor 54, it's 1 and 54, 2 and 27, 3 and 18. Right? Yeah. 4, no. 5, no. 6 and 9. Why did I do it this way? Because look, the only other numbers between 6 and 9 are 7 and 8. Are 7 and 8 factors of 54? No. So I'm done. And I know that I'm done with confidence. Okay, and that's important. They're both positive, so I know the factors are both positive. So it's 6 and 9. I get x plus 6 times x plus 9 equals 0. Set them both equal to 0, and I solve. Subtract 6 from both sides, then subtract 9 from both sides. X equals negative 9. Those are my answers. Okay. Any questions on that? All right, next one. Add 12 to both sides. I get x squared minus 13x.
Oh, I sure do. Oh, I sure will. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Marley.
Goodbye, Molly. Have a nice day. What? What? You okay? Did I take? I don't think I took roll today. It's bad.
Yeah.
Is anybody absent?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mike was talking to you.
Oh. 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 Sorry. Cool. Anybody absent that I just missed? No. Sorry.
Are you getting down to the year before?
Right now?
I just got a video that I'm moving down there.
You can go.
Thank you.
Okay. Now. Next one. Did you do all these? Number 5 and number 6?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Plus 12. No?
I'll be back.
Okay. All right. Then I factor this. 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. This is positive, so they're both the same sign. This is negative, so they're both negative. They combine because that's positive, so it's 1 and 12. It's x minus 1 times x minus 12 equals 0. Set them both equal to 0. X minus 1 equals 0. X minus 12 equals 0. And then I solve. X equals 1. And add 12. X equals 12. Last one here. Subtract 56. I get x squared minus x minus 56 equals 0. Factor this out. 1 and 56. 2 and 28. 3, no. 4, yes. 4 and 14. 5, no. 6, no. But 7 and 8. This is negative and this is negative. They're opposite signs. So I find the difference to make -1, and that's definitely 7 and 8. And the bigger one is negative. So it's x plus 7 times x minus 8 equals 0. 7 minus 8 is -1. Set them individually equal to 0. X plus 7 equals 0. X minus 8 equals 0. And then solve for x. X equals -7. X equals +8. And those are my final answers. Any questions about that? Okay, good. Now, last part. Go ahead and read this paragraph on 313 where it says architecture. Just read the paragraph. Okay. Okay. A rectangular porch has dimensions of x plus 12 and x plus 5 feet. If the area of the porch floor is 120 square feet, what are its length and width? Okay. A rectangular porch has dimensions of x plus 12 and x plus 5 feet. It's a rectangular porch. What should I draw? A rectangle. Good. So it's got x plus 5 and x plus 12. And it's talking about the area of the porch floor is 120, right? So I should probably come up with the area of a rectangle, right? What's the area of the rectangle? Length times width. Well, in this case, L is x plus 12 and width is x plus 5. So the area equals x plus 12 times x plus 5. But we know the area is 120 square feet, right? Well, what should I do with that 120? Plug it in for A. So I get 120 equals x plus 12 times x plus 5. So I got that far simply by just doing what I know. I didn't really solve anything. That's what I know. Now, if I want to solve for x, what do I have to do here? FOIL. I can't solve directly because those aren't equal to 0. If those two were just equal to 0, I could solve directly. But since they're not, I got to do something different. So I have to FOIL. So I end up with 120 equals x squared plus 5x plus another 12x is plus 17x. 12 times 5 is 60. Okay? Now what do I do? Subtract 120 from both sides. I've got to get it equal to 0. Right? So I end up with 0 equals x squared plus 17x minus 60. Now that I've got this quadratic equation or quadratic function equal to 0, what do? Now I factor. 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, 6 and 10. Only other numbers left would be 7, 8, and 9. None of those are factors of 60, so I'm done. You see what I mean by the only numbers left are 7, 8, and 9? Right? This is why it's good, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In between those two numbers are 7, 8, and 9. So it's a good way to do it. Okay, so this is negative, so the numbers are the signs are opposite, and this is positive. So I've got to find the difference that makes 17. Which of them have a difference of 17? 3 and 20, exactly. 3 and 20. Oh, that was 2 and 30. 3 and 20. Okay. So I know that this is positive, so the bigger number has to be positive. So it's x plus 20 times x minus 3 equals 0. The product's equal to 0, so I set them individually equal to 0. X plus 20 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. I subtract 20 from both sides. I add 3 to both sides. I get x equals negative 20 and x equals positive 3. And those are my answers for x. And I say, oh, okay, that's the answer, right? X equals negative 20, x equals positive 3. Wait, what is it actually asking for? The length and the width, right? So it's not asking for what x is, it's just asking for the length and the width. So which do I use, negative 20 or 3? 3. Why don't I use negative 20? Because if I use negative 20, and I plug that in, well, negative 20 plus 12 is negative 8. The length isn't negative 8, right? So it's not negative 20. It is x equals 3, right? So I plug in 3, I get, this is 3 plus 12 equals 15. That's the length. And 3 plus 5 equals 8. That's the width. So length equals 15. Width equals 8. How can I check that I got the right answer? Multiply them. Because if I multiply them, 15 times 8, I should get what? 120, and that's exactly what I get. All right. Cool. So that's the lesson for the day. Yes, sir? Yes, just 1 second. The next question is, what is the homework? The homework is page 314, numbers 3 through 19. 314, numbers 3 through 19. That's your homework. You have until, I believe, Monday to do it. All right, any questions? All right, thank you, class. You got 10 minutes. Go ahead and use them wisely. Look,